Hello, everybody. The road of creating a musicale from, well, nothingness to begin with is a long one. From finding the right idea to gathering a team to planning to drafting to development to revision and all the way to production. Y'all, it's a big journey. It's a really big journey. And because it's so long and complex, it's very common for people to lose motivation on their projects along the way. This is one of the most common things I see. I can't tell you how many people I've spoken with over the years who simply end up putting down a project, a show that they've poured years into, years of time and energy, all because they lost motivation. So, what do we do about this? How do we find and maintain motivation across years of hard work and dedication? I can only speak from my own experiences and those of my peers and my clients, but let's talk through 8 tips today, all about motivation. But first, hi, hello. I'm Michael Ratty, aka musical theater writer guy. I am your musical theater writing coach. So, welcome to my channel. If you are an aspiring or emerging musical theater writer, or you're interested in taking a dive in to this world as musical theater writing, you are in the right place. We do live streams every couple of weeks, and I release like edited videos every 2 weeks, in addition to a whole bunch of shorts. So, like, subscribe. Let's do the thing. Okay. Number one. Here we go. We're diving in, diving in, diving in. Motivation is not inspiration. That's right. Motivation and inspiration are different things. And I think this is an important distinction to make because a lot of people look at the idea of motivation and they feel feelings about it because they are conflating it with the idea of inspiration instead. So motivation is a cause to move or to do. It creates motive. It moves. That's what motivation actually is. So, pressing the gas pedal and the additional gas moving into the engine to be combusted so that the car can move forward. That's motivation. We did something to create, to cause a movement forward. Inspiration, on the other hand, is something that is honestly almost divine in nature. It comes from, I believe, Latin, just based on the root, and spiritus, yes, which it means of the breath. So inspiration actually means something that is coming in with breath. Woo, that's interesting, is it not? So motivation is something that we are taking an action because we've created something that allows us to take action. Inspiration is different. Inspiration is something that comes out of almost nowhere. It's that moment when you are feeling out of nowhere, just like, oh, that's an idea, right? That light bulb moment, that's inspiration. Or you're in the middle of taking a walk and you suddenly have an urge to go create something or to go do something. That's inspiration. Now, we talk about inspiration all the time as artists, right? How often do we speak about, well, I don't feel inspired to do this, or man, I'm feeling so inspired right now to write this. I know it's not my main project I've been working on, so should I follow that inspiration? My answer to you, friends, is always yes. If you feel inspired to do something specific, follow it. Inspiration is pretty short term. It's not going to be there for a long period of time. It's one of the things that makes it feel so divine. It's like breath, right? We take in a breath and then we let it go. It was only within us for a short period of time, and that's how inspiration works. Motivation, on the other hand, is making the ability to do things, to move, to progress, to literally move your body or move your thought patterns or move your projects from one state to another. It's a completely different thing. So, my first tip to all of us is let us fully separate the ideas of motivation and inspiration. It is important to do, my friend. Very, very important. Number two, moving forward here. Oh, look, it's 11/11. And it's October 11th. Look at that. Okay, so motivation. Motivation comes with creative practice. One more time, motivation comes with creative practice. So, what is creative practice? Creative practice is like practicing anything. We need to have the muscles ready to do something and be able to do it over and over again, do it at a moment's notice, do it routinely, right? A creative practice is getting your creative muscles, if you will, to be working constantly and know how to get into doing what they're doing. Right, so let's take this to the body for a moment, just to make sure that we are all on the same page. Uh, if you are going to, let's say, you join a sports team, would you join that team, do nothing, and then play your first match? Clearly, no, right? This is why we have sports practice. We need to practice, not just in terms of what our own body is doing. So we warm up, we do calisthenics, we get our heart rate going, right? We do cardio, we do strength training, we get the muscles ready to fire, and then we practice the things that we're going to do as part of whatever sport we're playing. If it's soccer, you got to know how to pass the ball. You have to know what kind of tricks you can do with your feet in order to make sure you maintain the ball or can get the ball back, right? Soccer is not my sport. I don't know why I chose soccer. Here we are. But that's one piece of it, is what your body is doing. That is part of practice. The other part of it is relational, right? You need to be able to practice with your teammates so you have a relationship so that when you see that look from someone, you know exactly what that means and you can do something about it. So practice, right? We do it with anything, everything. We call meditation a practice. We call yoga a practice. Let's go to theater. Rehearsals are practice. That's precisely what they are. Did anyone grow up saying play practice? I know I said that as a kid. That's how I was taught it, but it was play practice. It's all about the practice piece. So just like all of that, including the relational piece, what you see is not bound by muscles. Because sometimes when I say creative practice, people are like, but you don't have a muscle for that. I'm like, oh, it's about the synapses firing in here. We got to get those creative paths working. Got to get the myelin to build up around those synapses so that we can move into our creative practice, our creative flow easily, readily, all the time, consistently. So motivation, the ability to move, the ability to do, comes with creative practice. Practice is a beautiful and wonderful thing. There's wonderful neuroscience behind it, but also if you just look at routine, you're more likely to do something that you practice and do it well. So there's that piece too, if you want to improve your writing. Hey, so that's tip number 2. Tip number 3, schedule your creative time. When you schedule your creative time, it creates motivation. What? Well, if we go back to that definition of motivation that I said at the beginning, motivation is a cause to do, right? So if you give yourself a block of time, if you're not aware of the idea of time blocking, essentially it's looking at a calendar, whether that's a daily calendar, weekly calendar, monthly calendar, however you do it. In this particular case, I'm talking more of like scheduling throughout your week. And you literally block out your time for certain things, certain tasks. So if you can block out into your schedule, into your weekly calendar schedule, time for creativity, you will then have cause. You will have cause to go forth and create because you set time aside for that task. Because I think we all pretty well know if we don't set time aside for something, it's likely not going to happen. I know that that's true for me. If I don't say this is going to happen at this time on this day, probably won't do it. So, who else is in the boat of looking at their schedule with a friend and saying, well, we'll figure it out later. And then you and your friend never get together because you never figure it out later. Instead, I always insist, hey, can we actually decide on a time and a place? Maybe not the place, but at least the day, relative time, morning, afternoon, evening. That'd be great. Then it's in my calendar. It's blocked out. I'm ready to go. Okay? Because I will have set that time aside. I've made it almost sacred for that purpose. Same thing happens with creativity. And this can be hard at first. If you've never had a creative practice that was scheduled in before, it can be difficult to go through this process for the very first time because it feels like, wait, where am I going to put it in? And what time of day should I do? Am I going to actually feel inspired to go forth and write at that time or create or do something? Or am I going to just like freeze up? There are a lot of questions that come into this. And that's okay. That's totally fine. You're allowed to question it. When I first started time blocking, woo, this would have been officially about 2015, fall of 2015. Ooh, it's almost been a decade. And I started small. I started with 2 days a week. It was Tuesdays and Thursdays because of my schedule. Tuesdays and Thursdays worked very well for me. And I had about an hour I was able to schedule in for sure that could have the flexibility to extend past that. Early on, though, it really didn't and almost never extended past that. I just didn't have the practice down. My synapses were not used to firing in this way, and I'd get tired pretty fast. After like 30, 45 minutes, I'd be like, okay, I think I'm spent. No more creativity, gotta go. And I was officially doing this for writing purposes. Now, when I expanded the meaning of my creative time, my scheduled creative time, to be more than just the writing itself, that was super useful because then I was able to fill more of the time I set aside, extending closer to that 2 hours, and be able to do other things in my creative practice besides writing. So sometimes it was, well, I didn't get to sing for myself this week, so I'm gonna go sing and practice something. Or if I had a show coming up, I would practice for that. Sometimes I would just go play the piano because that's fun to do, is to just play the piano. Sometimes I would work in my creative realm, but I wouldn't work on writing the piece itself. I was deep in King's Legacy revisions at this point, like the big structural revisions. So maybe I wouldn't go work on Legacy, but maybe I'd go back and revise something else. Or maybe I'd look into some submission opportunities for Legacy when it's done. So I had those lined up. Or write some pitch materials. Or sometimes I would learn something about my creativity. Like whatever it is, as long as it's based in your creativity, it counts. So expanding that definition was big for me and definitely allowed me to get it into my day more, into my week more, into my bones a bit more. So eventually, by the time 2016 rolled around, about a year later, I had scheduled in a guaranteed 3 days a week, 2 hours blocked off. Oh, mwah! I got so much done. It was beautiful. Um, it works. It works very well because when you have that thing set aside, motivation comes. You already did the thing to motivate you, and then you just go and you do. And you can follow your inspiration, what part of your creativity you're most inspired to do at that moment. And if you're really not feeling it, trust me, give yourself 20 to 25 minutes of trying your best to do some creativity, and you'll either get into it because it just took a little warm-up time, or you will be smashing your head against the wall, hopefully not literally, and therefore you have the grace to give yourself to say, okay, maybe not today. Try again tomorrow or on my next time block day. Schedule it in. It's so good. Hey, Arca Twilight. But we should be okay with not accomplishing. Oh my gosh, yes, yes, yes. Of course, you don't have to accomplish anything in that time if you don't want to. Sometimes creativity is just go play. Honestly, I have sat and sung material at my piano, and that has filled me up creatively. Because I don't know if we're all aware of that idea of the seven types of rest. One of those types of rest is creativity. So when it comes to creativity, we want to both be able to refill our battery, and that's a little bit more of that. I'm just gonna do something creative because I want to do something creative, right? Go play, go sing. You don't have to do anything. Go color, draw, paint, show no one, burn it afterwards if you want to. Doesn't really matter. As long as you're doing something creative, it can refill your creative cup, can be part of creative rest. Or if you just can't do anything creative and you want to step away, that's also part of creative rest. So it's not always about production. Production is great. We love that. But you want to be finding ideas that inspire you, working on ideas at times, and then also like the idea of producing something, or which could be, I don't know, I'm going to put together a reading. That's creative energy. That's creative time. So yes, it is not based upon your product. Good question. Thank you for that. Glad you're here. Tip number 4, set writing meetings with a collaborator. Woo-hoo-hoo. Okay, so this goes kind of to that whole idea of accountability, which I'll say more soon. But if you have a first of all, if you don't have a collaborator of any kind on your creative project, my question to you is why not? As someone who has written shows by myself, multiple, I feel at this point you have to have a really good reason to be writing on your own or to be creating on your own without other people. Creativity works best in collaboration, especially in the theatrical arts. So my question to you would be, why no collaboration? Why no collaborator? That being said, I'm going to assume the majority of us have some sort of collaborator, whether it's a writing one, or you like working with performers, or dramaturg, or director, or I don't know, maybe you were commissioned by a theater, in which case, good for you. And also, that's a collaborator. Right, when you set writing meetings, or set meetings at all with your collaborator, that is going to give you a deadline. And we do love a deadline, right? It is about showing up for people who are also relying on you for what you're working on, right? Accountability, which we'll get to, uh, can be more than that. But when you have someone you're collaborating with, they rely on you and you rely on them. So if you have a meeting on the calendar, not only does that give you a little bit of a deadline if you have some homework you need to take care of before that meeting, but also, boy, is it so much nicer and easier to just be in a room, a virtual room, a physical room, doesn't matter, with someone else working on the same project. That can light you up so much, right? That can help create inspiration for sure. But with a blocked set of time, with someone creative working with you on that project, you will have clear motivation to create, to do something. So it also forces you to use your time wisely, which is because like we all have busy lives. Like I can block out time for myself, and as long as my schedule allows for me to be flexible with that, I can be flexible. Harder to be flexible when you're in collaboration with someone. Okay, that was the first 4 tips. Tip number 1 was we are separating the definition of motivation and inspiration. Tip number 2, set a creative practice. That's a great way to create motivation. Number 3, scheduling your creative time. Time blocking, beautiful, beautiful thing to do. And number 4 is to set meetings with your collaborators. First 4 tips. I'm going to take a sip of water here, and we'll get to the next 4 tips. If you're just joining, hello, hello. Today is all about motivation because the road to production is hard. From ideation to production, it is long, very, very long. We have to find ways to stay motivated on our projects. Because I'm sick of watching people fall off. Hey, Abhishek, what do you have? Yes, I agree. Creativity as a form of rest. But once you have other commitments to juggle, too, work, family, etc., it's so hard to be creative for its own sake. It is, but that's what time blocking is for. We time block, right? Because, yeah, we have responsibilities. I mean, I started and I run a business. That doesn't mean that I'm not also creative. It did mean that for a period of time. when I was first starting um the initial course and YouTube channel and trying to get all the logistics of starting a business up and running. Yeah, I definitely had less time for my quote unquote creative projects, but I still had creativity time blocks because it was important to have them, right? Or else I wouldn't have gotten as much business stuff done because that was in addition to the other obligations like coaching, vocal coaching. I was doing a lot of vocal coaching at the time, and plus like life stuff. Yeah, no, all good. But I hear you. I hear you very much so. Oh, also, do I need to announce anything before we move on to our second set of four tips? If you're not yet a part of the Musical Theater Writing Collective, hey, why not? But also, if you're interested in coming to join us, we have some events coming up. We have our Fall Quarterly Cabaret, that's on the 18th. Our theme is Darkest Before the Dawn, so that's going to be a lovely time. And we also have a play reading coming up from a collective member on Sunday the 20th. So now's actually a great time to join if you haven't joined yet. So come on in. I don't think I have any other announcements besides that. I'll probably do some sort of like uh challenge of some variety in November, trying to space these out a bit more and do 4 a year. So November seems like a good time. So keep an eye out for that, y'all, too. All right. More tips. Let's do it. Tip number 5. I said I would talk about it, so let's talk about it. Accountability. Having accountability is a great way to motivate yourself or to be motivated by others in order to create and to keep going. There's so many things that accountability can look like. First and foremost, I love accountability buddies, or as as they say in the Spark file, accountability buddies, which is just a great word. I love a good word. Having someone who can be there for you, who knows your project, knows what you're up to, knows what you're up against, and can be there as a check-in point is so great. That's so motivating. Because it feels like if someone doesn't really know what's up in your project, what your challenges are, what you've been aiming for, what your goals are, then it's really easy to be like, well, they can't hold me accountable. They don't know anything about my stuff. But when you have a buddy who's very specifically knows all of that stuff, it's kind of like, oh, I don't want to let them down, right? And so even if you don't hit all of your goals, there's more motivation to go forth and to do things and to make them happen. Um, Naturally, more motivation because someone else is involved and they're excited for you, hopefully. Now we don't want someone who's like could be stern and I like imagine a stern teacher with a ruler, right? That's not what we're looking for. We're looking for someone who's a buddy. Other great ways to do that are in a group setting. I'm a huge fan of accountability groups. I run one. Hi, isn't that lovely? But also, I every time I'm in an accountability group, I really like that setting too. Because not only do you have a group of people who know your project intimately and your goals and your struggles and all that information, but on top of that, you have a whole bunch of people who can help you out along the way. So I don't know about y'all, but sometimes I do feel a little stuck between moments of accountability and I get to one and I'm supposed to give something that means something, like hit some sort of small goal along the way and I fall short and then I have a group of people to lift me back up and say, "Hey, it's okay. Look at what you did do and also here's some thoughts that may help you around what's blocking you." So, throwing it out there. I love a group. Collaborators can also be great accountability buddies. It's also tough to hold people accountable when you're also accountable. So take it, leave it. Some people like to do that, some people don't. There's also the idea of holding oneself accountable. I think most of us find that really hard, which is why most of us don't do it. Therefore, we look for external accountability. But if you are able to hold yourself accountable, and at times in my life I've been able to do that, then that can be lovely as well. That can look like giving yourself a little treat when you hit something that you were meaning to do, or it could just be showing up for yourself in a way where you are building trust and faith in yourself and what you do, and that can be great too, just on its own. Orca Twilight. Next course starts in March. If you're talking about the flagship course, yes, that will start in early March, early mid-March. I don't have the exact dates off the top of my head, but yes, that's the next round of the flagship course, the Foundations course. The other course that I run, the 6-month adventure, that's more of an accountability group mastermind thing. Gotta find a better way to describe it. It's delightful. That's a 6-month group, so that the next one of that will start, I believe, mid-late February. So keep an eye out for that as well. Okay, that was tip 5. Tip 6, related. Set deadlines. Deadlines, y'all. Nothing is better to motivate you to get things done than a deadline. And I used to roll my eyes at people saying that in college. Like, I had this weird thing where I just felt like anyone who was motivated by a deadline, like, come on, guys. You really need a deadline to study or a deadline to get that project done. You can't just do it. Didn't realize that, yeah, most people need that, like the vast majority. And then when I started to get a busy life as an adult, I understood. I was like, oh, yeah, that would never get done if I didn't have a deadline. So, a couple of things about this. For deadlines, they only work if you're being held to them. So this goes to that whole like self-accountability thing. If you set a deadline for yourself, who's holding you to it? Hopefully an accountability buddy, right? There are other ways to be held to it as well. Sometimes it is suggested to announce your deadlines publicly. Sometimes people will go online and just say, hey, everybody, I'm working on this and I'm going to have it done by here. And then they provide updates along the way. I find that taxing personally. That's not for me, but I know it works for a lot of people. However, what I will say is if you have some sort of public presentation that has been announced, that's a real deadline. That is a deadline where people are going to show up for a thing, right? Well, we talk about this all the time in the business world because I've been in the business world. I never would have thought that 5 years ago. But all the time people are like, hey, announce a course. Then you're going to build it. I guarantee you. And that's for people who have trouble being motivated to build their courses. I do not. That was fun for me. That was enjoyable. But if you set a deadline for something like, oh, I don't know, a public reading or a production, and there are steps that have to be taken for that project before that time hits, or by the time the script needs to be frozen, or by the time rehearsals start, you're gonna have to get it done. You do not have a choice. You got to get it done. There's a thing happening. You promise people a thing. And even better if they're paying for that thing. Ooh, or if they're people that you care about who are coming. My family comes to everything I do, so so I always feel that pressure to get it done because, I want to make it good for my fam. Deadlines, they're beautiful, they're wonderful. All right. To review our first 6, we had motivation and inspiration are different, and we are going to acknowledge that and we are going to internalize that. Number 2 was create a creative practice, because motivation comes with creative practice. Number 3 was scheduling your creative time blocking. Number 4 was setting writing meetings with collaborators or just setting collaborator meetings. Number 5 is accountability, hopefully with a buddy or a group, preferably. Number 6 was to set deadlines. So we've got two more today. Number 7. This is one that people poo-poo all the time, and we should not poo-poo it. That's right, I said poo-poo. Motivation comes from enjoying the ride. Sorry to tell y'all, but the enjoyment of the end product is not enough. We will not be motivated by the joy we hope to feel by having a thing completed. That's not going to be good enough motivation. Is it something we're striving for? Most of us, yes, I would say so. We have an idea of what a project is going to look like at the end. Spoiler alert, it's not going to look like that no matter what. It always looks different than what you expect. But beyond that, we are looking forward to that not because of the thing itself. Let's say it's a production, right? Your first production of one of your musicals. Great, we love that, right? We are aiming for that because why? It's not because the production itself means anything. I mean, it's a step in your career, and that's good. We'll celebrate that. But we are really aiming for the feeling that we hope to have by having that production. We will feel what? We will feel, I don't know, fill in the blank for you, but it could be fulfilled, happy, joyful. We hope the imposter syndrome will go away. We will feel relieved. Whatever the feeling is, that's really what we're aiming for. And that can only happen, potentially happen even, if we get to the end point. It's not a real good motivator, right? Science backs this up. I mean, if we look at weight loss, right? People set weight loss goals and they cling to the thing at the end. That's not good enough motivation to usually even do the thing in the first place, like get to the gym, make all the stuff happen. But beyond that, like it's to keep it, right? Because there's internal stuff to go through first. And this is where finding a way to enjoy the ride being the creative process itself, is just so important. It's not about the end goal. It's not about the feeling you hope to get at the end. It's about finding a way to just love your creativity. Oh, thank you, JT. Appreciate the claps. We have to find ways where settling into your creative time, whether that was time blocked or I don't know, you're in a rehearsal process now. You've got obligations to fulfill. That becomes something that is an enjoyable process. Is it work? Yes. Who said work can't be enjoyable? Right? We especially these days, we tend to lean toward doing work that lights us up, that we enjoy, that doesn't make us hate our 9 to 5 hours or whatever hours you utilize, right? That's the hope, is that we enjoy whatever it is that we're doing. Same thing goes with your creative practice, enjoying it along the way. I'm not gonna lie. When I sit down to write and I feel no enjoyment, I know that there's other stuff I have to take care of first. That's usually when I abandon my time block and go do something for my nervous system, go reset it somehow, do some meditation, go for a walk, talk to a friend on the phone, do some EFT, exercise, whatever it is. If I'm not finding enjoyment in the creative practice, I've got stuff to deal with first. Okay? So enjoy the ride. That's number 7. Number 8, last tip for today, is to give yourself grace. Give yourself grace. Because you're not always going to be able to find that motivation, right? We talked about it in different ways throughout these other 7 tips of times where you will not have the motivation that you are hoping to have or that you quote unquote require in order to get something done. But if you beat yourself up for it, if you then go through a process of feeling so negative and guilty and shamed about not being creative, not using your time wisely, not creating something, whatever story it is you're telling yourself about that creative time, if you then go through this process of negativity around it, are you likely to want to come back and do it again? Or are you going to start feeling scared that that's going to happen over and over and over? Right? So there's some internal stuff that has to be taken care of. But the thing that you can actively do in that moment when you don't feel the motivation is to grant yourself grace. To simply say, okay, I don't have the motivation to do this right now, and that's okay. I'm going to step away. I'm going to rest. I'm going to recuperate. I'm going to figure out what's going on, right? Whatever it looks like to step away, that's up to you, your journey, whatever's happening with you. Hopefully you're working with a therapist. I always recommend everyone is in therapy. Please, everyone be in therapy. But beyond that, you first have to say, it's okay if I can't create today. It's okay. Because it is. If you do not have motivation on any given day, it is totally okay. Nothing you gotta do about it. We all have good days for creativity. We all have less good days for creativity. It's all great. It's part of the human experience. It's also part of like working on internal stuff and all the different types of rest. So that's my 8 tips on motivation for today. I will stick around for an Ask Me Anything, but just as a reminder of what they all were, tip 1 was separating the definition between motivation and inspiration. Important. Number 2, creative practice. Finding a creative practice, getting a creative practice. It's a beautiful motivator. Number 3, scheduling your creative time blocking. Number 4, set writing meetings or creative meetings with collaborators. Number 5, get accountability. Find accountability in a way that works for you. Number 6 is to set deadlines, especially public ones. Number 7 is to enjoy the ride. Find a way to enjoy your creativity. And number 8 is to give yourself grace when that motivation isn't there. And that is my 8 tips on motivation. There we are. There it is. Motivation's hard, everyone. It's a tough thing that we all grapple with, especially as creatives. So, as I said, I'll stick around for some Ask Me Anything. If anyone's got some questions, comments, things they want to chat about, I've got till the end of the hour, so why not? But no pressure either way. If no one's got anything, that's cool too. Are there other things I was supposed to update people on? Like I said, keep your eye out for some sort of challenge next month. If people have a specific topic they'd like me to do for a challenge, let me know. I'm going to do another of those songwriting challenges in the like early 2025 time. But the other open times for challenge or mini workshop sort of stuff, I don't have set yet. I want to cook something up around collaboration. I'm not sure what yet, so let me know if you have themes or topics you'd like me to hit. Question: how do you connect with the local theater company without sounding like you want something from them? Well, that's a good question. I think that goes to a larger question. How do you connect with anyone without making it sound like you are... Okay, stepping back. Good question, JT. The first thing I would say about it is it's okay to want something from people. That's fine. But like relationships can be transactional. That's totally okay. So grant yourself some grace. But beyond that, I think what you're getting at is we don't want to sound like we're using people just for their resources, which would make me ask first and foremost, are you using them just for just for their resources? If that's the only reason you'd want to connect with a local community, theater, or company, is to simply use them, then I would rethink your motivation on that. Motivation. Here we are. We're back. Now, if that's not the intention, if your intentions are to work with, right, to get connected with so that you have the opportunity to work with that company in the future, potentially even have them put on your show that you're writing, well, then really the intention there is to work with, right, to connect to. So in that case, what I would do is try to reach out to them to be connected first and foremost. Ask how you can get involved and do so now before you need something from them or want something from them. So, can you volunteer to usher at a show? Is there a skill that you can offer? Do they have an educational program? Do you have skills in props or costumes that you can offer to the theater? Is there a way for you to work with them, get hired to work for them, with them on something? That would be probably my first thought, is to connect with them in a way where they can just like meet you, see who you are, see what you do, what you can offer, what you bring, and let a relationship develop first. From there, then you have that connection already, and you can hopefully do something with that. So if you've got a show that you want them to put up, If you're already connected with them, you're gonna have a lot better of a chance. Now, if you're reaching out to someone more in a cold setting, like you don't really know them very well, but you do want something from them, I still would offer that you would want to find a way to connect first. So there's a principle Adam Grant wrote an entire book on. I think it's called Give and Take. There's a principle of when you give something to someone, when you are able to offer someone something, they are more likely to want to give back or at least establish a relationship. So let's say you're reaching out to a performer and you want that performer to sing a demo for you. What is it that you can offer them? Oftentimes it's money, right? Here's what I can offer to you in order to do this thing. Offering money up front sounds very, very transactional. Is there a way to establish a relationship first? Maybe. Is there a way in which you have a skill you can offer them, or that demo could be usable for their reel, or you can, uh, if they're good for a role that you're writing, maybe they can get first refusal on the next. I don't know. This is all completely off the top of my head, and so in the ether. But offering something first is always a great way to not sound needy but instead to create establish a connection. Wow, I talked a lot about that. Sorry about that. Orca Twilight. My university doesn't allow auditions from non-theater majors, and we don't have any community theaters nearby. Any advice on finding people? Finding people to do what? Non-theater majors. Like finding people to perform with or to get to perform your material. I think when it comes to finding people, it's like, what kind of people are you looking for? Do you need them to be nearby? Do you need them to be in person? Or are you looking for like, what are you looking for the performers to do? Um, is it the kind of thing where you're looking for people to sing a demo, to do a reading? Right? There's lots of ways to go about advertising for that sort of thing. There are things like Facebook groups and whatnot, but also there are plenty of companies out there that put on readings of stuff. So maybe you can reach out to a company, see if they'll do one, even online. Like we in the collective, we do online readings all the time. Every reading we've done has been online or hybrid online. So that is something that you can always do is either join us or find a company like the Musical Theater Writing Collective that does that sort of thing. If you're looking for performers to then do a reading like that, yeah, I mean, you can always post an advertisement on Backstage or Playbill. What level of performer are you looking for? Ooh, I'm a pit musician looking for playwrights and reading casts. And maybe lyricists too. Yeah, well, when it comes to connecting with other writers, it does get tough. There are half a dozen Facebook groups that are, in my opinion, filled a bit with noise, but are places where writers gather and share information and look for collaborators. I don't know how successful they are at finding collaboration across people, just based on looking at the posts and the way they're written and the kinds of things people are looking for. But they do exist, and so that's a route you could take. The Musical Theater Writing Collective is another route you can take to find people, writer people, and performer people. Honestly, we have performers. Um, yeah. Reading casts. I think if you don't know those people yourself, who do you know who knows those people, right? You've got to know someone who knows a performer, and that performer may have recommendations. And if you don't know anyone who knows a performer, do you know someone who knows a director or designer, right? I sometimes like designers I've worked with will sometimes recommend me for a project, which is always a delightful surprise. Like, oh, right because you, as a designer, have seen me perform. Probably way too many times during a tech process, and probably you're sick of me. But hey, they recommended me. So you always know more people than you think you do. I'll throw that out there. Oh, yeah, your university is wrong for that. Uh, Universities and theater is a topic for another day. It's a controversial opinion I hold, so probably not something I'm gonna do. But it's possible. I do think our the way restrictions work in university settings for theater, whether it's performance or anything else, is rough. It sets up a lot of people to not have success in their careers, to follow their education, which seems like working against the idea of education in the first place. But maybe that is just me. Ooh. Hopefully I answered your question there, Orca Twilight. I know it's not an easy, quick, straightforward sort of answer, but doing my best over here. I feel like I just pulled a Huckleberry Hound. I don't feel good about that. Here we are. Anyone else have any other questions, thoughts, reflections from today? Um, yeah, connecting with people. It's hard. Don't forget, friends, that part of the connecting with people is going to be vulnerability. I think we're all trying to avoid that a little bit when we get into this conversation initially. I know I certainly did for years. It's like, I don't want to be vulnerable. I just want the things. I want the things from the people who can help me with the things. But it does take a level of vulnerability to say, hey, here's what I have. Here's what I don't have. Here's what the things I know I'm doing. Here's the things I don't know how to do at all. Or that kind of thing takes vulnerability also to say to someone, hey, would you perform my thing? I made this. Right? Sometimes it feels a little bit like a little kid. Or like Oliver asking for more. Right? That whole feeling of I made this. Do you like it, please? Do it. Thank you. But don't forget, you are someone who created something. And hopefully you're asking someone who wants to be a part of a creative process or to produce a creative thing, like find the right people who are a good match for you, and the asks become so much easier. If you're making an ask to someone who's not right for you, well, probably not going to work out. If it's not right, it's not right. So just bear that in mind too. Yeah, well, we're a huge university and there's a lot of yeah, that's a thing for sure. I know that there's quite a bit of restriction around large universities or conservatory style universities. Only majors are allowed to do productions or allowed to audition or apply to things. It's tough. It's tough. Sorry that you're in that situation. Well, I don't see any other questions or comments. So I guess we will leave it here for today. Friends, I appreciate you joining me for this conversation about motivation. If there are other topics like this where you'd like me to cover them in a live stream, please just leave a comment or you can reach out to me directly. michaelratty.com. That is not an official jingle, but maybe it should be. That's where you'll find me. And I'm happy to put together a live stream on a specific topic. Or if there's another song you'd like me to break down, something specific, let me know. If I'm into breaking that song down, I will break it down. We haven't done a song analysis in like a month, maybe more. I also plan to have more of those interviews. The interview with Steve was something that people seemed super excited about and interested in. So I'm very happy to provide more of those, hopefully upcoming here. I've got some ideas of people to potentially speak to and bring on. And if you have ideas or connections you want to make with me for people you'd like me to interview, hey, let me know. Otherwise, my friends, I hope you have a lovely weekend. If you're in the US and you have a long weekend, enjoy. Otherwise, I will see you next time in the next video or live stream. All right, everybody. Cheers. Bye.